What's up guys, Justin here from CBI Off-Road in Princeton. Today we have a 2022 Tundra. We're gonna install a full front bumper on this. It's gonna drastically improve the looks of this truck. You're gonna wanna check this out. All right guys, so step one is we're just gonna verify we have all of our parts and pieces and that UPS didn't chuck them out of the truck before they got to your house. So we have obviously the bumper shell, that's the big guy, that's what everybody's gonna notice, that's the money right there. Here we have our winch tray. These three pieces, these brackets, they're gonna support the shutter assembly on the back side of the grille. We have these spacers, these are optional just based on how the appearance is gonna look on the bumper. We have a camera relocation bracket, which if you don't have a camera, you're not gonna need that. We have our light bar brackets, so same as the camera, if you're not running a light bar, you don't need those. These are our frame adapter brackets. We have two options on lighting. If you wanna run two lights on each side, you can use these brackets. If you're gonna only run a single, use these. These aren't powder coated, they will be in your setup. We're just putting them up here so you can see what they look like. And these are our light pod mounting brackets. And I think that sums up all our brackets. And of course you have a very hefty bag of hardware, which we're gonna go over in detail in the next shot. All right, so now we're just gonna do a quick flyover of the hardware that you're gonna need. I've kind of sorted it and I've prepped the bolts with washers and the associated nuts. So this row here is gonna be to install the winch tray. Down here we have to install the frame adapter brackets. The carriage bolts here are for the bumper shell to the winch tray. We have our grille shutter secured bolts. Then we have our light bar brackets, and these go to the lighting bezels. So that's kind of a quick flyover. We'll go over in more detail the hardware as we install it, but this is just a general checklist just to make sure you got everything. All right, so the first step, now that we've verified we got all our parts, we're gonna start disassembling this front grille and bumper. So starting up top, we got 4 10mm bolts. We got 2 plastic clips on each side, and this is the limited package, so we have 2 wiring harnesses on each side we're gonna have to unplug also. Going down inside the fender well, we have a couple 10mm bolts there on each side, and there's some across the front that we'll have to get rid of, but we'll get you close-up shots of all that. So 10mm, and get these clips out, wiring unplugged, we'll be on our way. So quick pro tip is, as we go through this process, you're gonna need to save all of your hardware and all of your clips, and there's a ton of really small hardware that's easy to get lost. So get you a good Ziploc bag or a good large bowl and just keep all of your stuff in there, just so when you go to reinstall, everything's right there in hand. Okay. Okay, so we got all of our bolts out. Next step is we're gonna actually remove this whole grille. So it is kind of big, obviously really big. So get 2 people if you don't feel comfortable handling it. But basically we're just gonna pop this fender out and then kind of get underneath and then pop this silver panel out. We're gonna do that on both sides, and then we should be able to carry it off to a safe place where we're not gonna scratch it, and then we'll start our cutting. Freedom. All All right, so we got this giant grill off. So our next step is we're gonna start unplugging our sensors. If you have them, your trim model may not have them, but we just need to pry outwards on these tabs. They'll come right out. And then all these wires are kind of clipped in here. We're gonna pop all that out and kind of get it up out of the way to relocate it, because we don't wanna cut it while we're cutting the bumper, and it's gonna have to be relocated up here because all this is gonna be cut off. So we'll get all of our wiring, we'll unplug these fog lights as well. So get all this unplugged and just get it kind of loose to where we could just move it up out of the way. So we just have this little kind of O-ring almost bezel that goes on the sensor face. Make sure you keep those on there. It just looks a lot better in the CBI bumper so that it's all black and it matches and you don't have this white showing in there. So just try to keep track of those. If they're falling off a lot, put them aside and then put them on when you install the CBI bumper. Now that we removed our wiring, we're gonna remove the shutter assembly. So we just have 3 10mm bolts on the bottom and 3 on the top. We'll get those out and get this out of the way. Okay, so now we're gonna get our layout for our cut. So we have this nice straight line here that we're gonna use for reference, and we're gonna measure up 1.5 inches from that line, make a mark with a Sharpie, then we'll stretch some tape through there. So we'll give you a tight shot of what this is gonna look like, but we're just following that line as a reference. Okay, so we're on the other side. We're gonna use the same measurement, 1.5 inches from that line up. This customer is Max Powell. He went a little ham on this, so this piece is gone, but yours will be here. This is another great reason why you want a CBI bumper, to protect all this. So we'll make our marks, get our tape stretched, and we'll be ready to talk about across the middle. All right, so now we're gonna talk about our cut going across the middle here. So between this kind of titanium piece and the black plastic of the grill, that valley down in there, that's gonna be our line going across. And then going straight across, we're gonna basically go in between the black plastic and the unpainted plastic. That's gonna be our line going across here. Once we get to here, we'll go straight down around the sensor and then follow these same measurements on the other side. Cutting across the middle, we'll do a lot of it with the grill flipped over. So we'll cut this line this way, then we'll flip everything over, because you could just see the lines a lot better from the other side. So we'll show you that as well. Okay, so we got all of our cutting attire on. Make sure you wear a good face guard to keep the plastic out of your eyes. Good gloves are definitely important. So we're gonna cut the sides Then we'll flip it over on its face and we'll cut across the middle. So to do the cuts on the sides, I'm gonna use this 5-inch cutoff wheel. For the middle, we have these hard to reach places, so we're gonna use a reciprocating air saw as well as a smaller air cutoff wheel. So we'll get the sides, flip it over, cut across the middle. Be brave. To finish out the cut, we just have a little bit to go across here. We're just gonna use our cutoff wheel, and we're gonna go only through the first layer of plastic. We don't wanna go through the second. Once we finish this line all the way out, there's a couple Phillips head screws on each side, and then a ton of these clips that we'll just make our rounds. Cutting them off, you can pop them out with a screwdriver, which is ever easy. I'm just gonna cut them off, and then the bottom section will come out, and then we'll dial up the middle. All right, so we got our cut finished up. Now we're just gonna get the Phillips head screw on each side removed, and then we'll start working our way, cutting these clips all the way across here. That'll release the bottom half of the bumper. Okay, so we got all of our clips off, our screws are out. Now we're gonna remove the bottom half from the top. So just kind of hold the grill down with one hand, pull firmly with the other. You will have to kind of fight it a little bit to get it out of the clips on the backside. Once we get it out, it'll fall right down. Okay, so Tundra went on a weight loss program, slimmed down, looks great. We got the bottom half off. We're just gonna clean up our cut a little bit. We do need to take off a little bit of plastic right here and just knock these clips off here with our cutoff wheel, and then we'll be ready to go to the truck. All right, so now we're done cutting. We're gonna wait to sand this until we do a couple test fits with the bumper, but you will be ultimately sanding this, making everything nice and straight, clean up these edges, but we're just gonna leave this for now and go back to the truck. Okay, so our next step, we're back at the truck. We're gonna start kind of taking apart a lot of this stuff, getting ready for our CBI bumper. So this lower grille support has to come off. We have two 10mm bolts here that'll pull that off. This crash bar also needs to come back. These are 17. We have two on the top and two on the bottom of each side. So we have to take off those. This vehicle is equipped with the air dam, the electronic air dam. So this needs to be unplugged, and we'll show you what to do with that later on in the video. But for now, let's get this stuff taken apart and we'll just keep working our way in. Okay, so our next step, we got everything disassembled. We got 2 plastic caps in the frame on each side that we need to pop out. Screwdriver or trim removal tool works just fine. Okay, so we got our caps out. We just need to remove this. I'm not even gonna call it a skid plate. I'm gonna call it a splash guard because it's super plastic and thin. So there's 4 12mm bolts on that we need to remove. Okay, so we got our winch tray in place. Now we're gonna go ahead and bolt it in. So we got our 2 1/2-inch bolts on each side and 1 3/8 bolt on each side. So the order of install is 1/2 inch towards the back, in the middle is the 3/8, and then up front is another 1/2 inch. So just a quick pro tip, because it's pretty far back there to get the nut started on the bolt, is we can take a little bit of electrical tape like this on a wrench. We can put the nut in the slot, kind of attach that tape, and now we can insert the wrench all the way to the back, start the bolt inside the nut without trying to fumble in there with our hands, because you can't really fit your hands in there. So we'll start by getting everything hand tight, then we'll go back and tighten it all down. Okay, so now that we got the winch tray secure, our next step is installing our frame adapter brackets. So we have this large circle here that goes over the stud sticking out in the factory frame. Basically, you want these 4 square holes facing outward of the vehicle. So we're gonna get all the bolts hand tight. We do need to get a spacer installed in between the bracket and the frame on these top 2 holes, so don't forget that. Our longer bolts are gonna go through these top holes, and then the shorter ones are gonna face upward just like that. Down here, we're gonna reinstall our factory hardware we removed from the crash bar. Washer. Bam, you gotta go quick. Okay, so we got everything started by hand on our frame adapter bracket. Just a quick pro tip, if you slide the bracket in as far as it goes and then tighten everything down, it'll make your life a lot easier when you're sliding the bumper into place. So there is a little bit of adjustment here. Push it all the way in and get everything tightened down. Okay, so now we're gonna install our light bar brackets. So these just sit right here on top on each side, and the offset faces in. So you're gonna wanna run a single row 30-inch light bar will fit. And there is quite a bit of adjustment because all light bars are created a little bit different. So you should be good there with any single row 30-inch light bar. So get your bracket in place, slide your 1/4-inch carriage bolt into place, get your nut started. And then once you have your light bar in here and all your dimensions are good with your adjustability, go ahead and tighten these down with a 7/16 wrench. All right, so now we're gonna get our bumper shell prep for install. So any pod lights, our lighting bezels, bracketry, we're gonna get all that done down here on the floor. So 7/16 wrench, 11/32 wrench, and a Phillips head screwdriver should be all you need down here. So again, if you're running the single light bezel, you'll grab that one. If you're running the dual light bezel, you'll grab that one. So we'll go ahead and get all of our parts hand tight, and then we'll tighten them up once we get it all in place. Okay, so now we're at the point where you can install a winch right there if you want, as well as your light bar, and it's time to put the bumper on. So grab someone wearing a matching shirt looking exactly like you to be able to put the bumper on. All right, so you see we have our bumper on here, and we went ahead and inserted the 2 carriage bolts through the frame adapter brackets and the bumper. So we got those 2 in. It's optional. You can take these louvers for the intercoolers off, and it'll give you more access in there. It's up to you. You can leave them on or take it off. We'll probably show you either way just so you can see it. But get those 2 in, and then you can go from the underside and get the other 2 bolts in. Okay, so we got the bumper on, everything's hand tight. We don't want to tighten it down yet because we want to get our adjustment based on how the grill looks on here. So leave those hand tight. We want to chop this off about level with the bumper. Once we get the grill on, we'll be able to get a nice straight edge and get a good line between the fender flare and the grill. So keep it hand tight, get that chopped, and we'll move on. Okay, so we got the grill in place. We went ahead and put some protective tape over the headlight so we don't damage it as we slide the grill in place. We're gonna take a couple of these bolts that we removed previously up here, go ahead and tighten them up so the grill sits in its spot where it's gonna be, and then we'll get some tape and get a nice straight edge to dial in our cut down here. All right, so we got our final line here. We're just gonna sand this line and get all this really nice and smooth. Go over all these edges, just really finish this out. Also, we're gonna go ahead and tighten down the bumper now that we know where we're gonna sit relative to this grill. So we'll get all that, flip this over, and I'll show you what to do with all the sensors. Okay, so now we're gonna do some finishing work here to the grill. We're gonna relocate the camera, we're gonna get our sensors squared away and this wiring. So if your model doesn't have the camera, the sensors, any of that, lucky you, because you don't have to mess with this. We, on the other hand, have all that, so we're gonna show you how to take care of it. So we have our camera relocation bracket. We're gonna get that installed, and like I said, we're gonna get the sensors popped out of these and get our sockets installed on the bumper. All right, for the camera, we popped out one of the clips there. We're gonna use a Phillips screwdriver. We're gonna take out these two screws here. Now we're gonna lock the bracket down right there in those factory holes, and the camera is gonna install on the lower side using our 1/4" bolts, and we're gonna use a 5/32 Allen to tighten that up. All right, so now we're gonna remove these sensors and keep track of where they're located on the harness because they are side specific. So make sure to keep them in the orientation they need to go. And to get this connector off, I'm just using a flathead screwdriver to kind of pry up on the end here to lift that tab, and then they come right out. All right, now getting the shutter put back together. So up top, it's just your factory 3 bolts go back in. Make sure you plug back in your wiring harness. Down here, we have 2 brackets that are gonna go on the outside. It's these guys here, and they go in this orientation right here. And again, we'll give you a close up, but just make sure that the bracket is offsetting higher than the lower hole here, and that the slope of this plane is, if water was running off, it would drain towards the inside. So it has to have that angle in. The next bracket is gonna be this one that's shaped like a Z, and it's gonna go in the center. So we need to remove this Phillips head screw, reinstall right there, and use our metric hardware included in your kit to mount back up. So that's how we get these going. We'll go ahead and get that now. Okay, so now we're gonna pop out these little keepers for the sensor. So again, these are specific to their location. Basically, the green ones are on the outside, the black ones are on the inside. So we just have a flathead screwdriver as well as our CBI knife that we're gonna pry these out with. So just get those out, and then we're gonna move them to the steel bumper. Okay, Okay, so now we're gonna get our adhesive onto the factory sensor retainers. So we're just gonna place 2 strips on the face of this, and then we're gonna center it up with the hole in the bumper and get it stuck in there firmly. So these are the green ones, so they're gonna be the 2 outer side, so make sure you don't mix that up. But yeah, clean all the old adhesive off. Use a knife, some adhesive remover. Make sure there's a good clean surface before you stick the new adhesive on it. Okay, so on the inner 2 sensors, we're gonna go ahead and put the same 3M tape on each side, but also up top, you'll see that this is kind of angled. So on the skinnier side up top, we stacked 2 pieces that are kind of toenail shaped. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna give that sensor the angle upward it needs to be at to be friendly. So make sure you stack 2 on top. I know it doesn't look the prettiest, but we're gonna be inside the bumper, so this is not gonna be visible. We just need to make sure that we press firmly to make sure this sticks good to the bumper. All right, so our next step after you've changed your shirt, got cleaned up, now we're gonna install our louvers here on each side. Same as how they came off, just the 4 bolts, 10mm. Okay, so we got everything ready to go. Really quick, before we get the grill on here, we went ahead and stripped down the electric air dam motor. We took the valance off of it and simply just kind of zip tied it in the winch tray for now. It's a total temporary situation. We are right on the edge of having a solution for that, basically just a plug and play module that will trick the truck into thinking that the air dam's still in place. So that should be a couple weeks down the road, but just for right now, we're just gonna strip it down and zip tie it in the winch tray since we have the space down there. Okay, so now we're ready to throw the grill on. We got all our sensors plugged back into the appropriate spot where they're gonna go. Just make sure when you fish them down, you are able to get to them. Just make sure the wires are all the way down to where they need to be. So you'll be able to access the inner sensors from the holes in the bumper. The outer sensors, you can go underneath the bumper and snap those into place. These brackets here, we will need to kind of fish those inside of the intercooler louvers. So just keep an eye out for that. So keep them a little bit loose so that you're able to get those in the proper place. All right, now that we got the grill in place, we're gonna go ahead and tighten up our bolts up top and get our plastic clips in, as well as plug back in our sensors. Then we'll jump to the inside and get our internal brackets. All right, so these inner brackets, we're gonna use the factory louver hole, the lower left hole. So it's kind of hard to get to it. I got a long extension here with the 10mm bolt, so we'll just kind of fish it through there and get that bolt in on each side. All right, so we got everything snapped back into place. We got our 10mm bolts back in each side. We're just gonna talk about the Fender Liners really quick. The other side's really short, so you can just kind of tuck it inside the bumper and it'll stay there just fine. This one's a little bit longer, so we're just gonna take a zip tie through this hole to this upper bracket up in here. So this will hold this one really good. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's install tutorial of the 2022 Toyota Tundra full front bumper. It's a pretty timely install, but man, does it look good. Totally worth it. Drastically improves the looks of this truck. Gives you a lot of functionality As always, like, subscribe to see more videos like this. We'll see you on the next one.